but that's alright.
Oh my god!
Yo guys, what is up? Max here in our Borderlands video, and today we're going over the top 10 most overpowered skills in Borderlands history. Now, for this video, I considered all of the Borderlands games, Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, the pre-sequel, Borderlands 3, and I did consider Wonderlands for this list because I thought it was a newer game. It'd be fun to consider the skills in it and place them on this list. Now, the criteria for my top 10 is based under the scenario that a hypothetical scenario that Gearbox is adding a brand new raid boss into the franchise that is going to be the hardest boss that we've ever seen, and we know nothing about it. What skill in the Borderlands franchise would most reliably and do the most damage to this boss? For this list, our number one priority on our ranking is the amount of damage a skill can do, and two is how reliable is that damage? Is it a skill that you can count on every single time, or is it a miracle to be able to do damage or the amount of damage with this skill? I did not consider skills that were overpowered for survivability, such as lifesteal skills. I did not like utility skills, such as like adding slags to turret. We're straight up talking damage here, and I hope you guys enjoyed the list. Spent a lot of time and a lot of asking around the community for opinions, fine-tuning this list, and I'm really happy with how it came out. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's get right into it. Coming in our number 10 spot is Bloodsplosion on Krieg in Borderlands 2. Now, Bloodsplosion is a skill that when you kill an enemy with extra damage, that extra damage is turned into an elemental nova. That elemental nova explodes, and if that elemental nova kills enemies in the enemy's vicinity, they can also explode with elemental novas. What this leads to is Bloodsplosion chains, and Bloodsplosion, as long as there's enemies to be near, can chain infinitely, creating an infinite damage scenario, hypothetically. The reason this skill is at our number 10 spot is because it is not super reliable. In Borderlands 2, there was one raid boss, Pyro Pete, that was very easy to do it against. There's two, technically raid bosses that you can do Bloodsplosion against, but in our raid boss scenario where we don't know what kind of raid boss we're going up against, this skill ranks at number 10 because, yes, it does have infinite damage potential, but if, for example, the boss doesn't have adds or has really high health adds, or one or two at a time at most, Bloodsplosion's ability to deal the obscene damage that it can deal is very limited, and that is why it is our number 10 spot. But yes, in ideal scenarios, Bloodsplosion can lead to infinite damage. Coming in our number 9 spot is Alchemical Agent on the Stabomancer. Now, I originally wasn't going to include this in the list, but it is undeniable how strong this skill is for bossing, particularly anything that is a crazy raid boss. Alchemical Agent reads, melee critical hits apply a random status effect. Now, first off, this is a guaranteed proc. Unlike some of our other skills on this list that can be a little bit more random, this is guaranteed to happen, and it'll always deal 10% of the melee damage dealt. However, what makes this skill so strong is its double dipping potential. This skill double dips in all of your damage formula. It gets status effect multipliers, and in Wonderlands, status effects can crit, meaning if you're in for something like From the Shadow, you're going to have all of the damage that you're dealing from this crit, and this leads to when you swing your melee weapon with this skill, your hit will connect, it'll deal a ton of damage, but the true damage is going to be coming from Alchemical Agent and will dot enemies like crazy. Getting a little bit of status effects and a little bit of all damage dealt turns this skill into a bossing monster, and easily one of the strongest skills we've ever seen, because it'll guarantee chunk enemies for obscene amounts of damage and insta-melt raid bosses. Coming in at our number 8 spot is Anarchy. Now, Anarchy is a T1 skill for Gage in Borderlands 2 and gives you increased gun damage at the cost of decreased accuracy. With a skill tree, Anarchy will be providing you with around 700% increased gun damage at the cost of 700% decreased accuracy. Now, the reason I wanted to put this skill where it is because while its damage is not as high as some of the other skills on this list, it is very reliable. You can pre-stack Anarchy, those stacks do not decay, you can travel with them, and the fact that you can reliably get this amount of damage and guarantee yourself against any raid boss that it'll work is really good for bossing and very reliable while providing a really great damage increase. Coming in our number 7 spot is Critical Ascension. Critical Ascension reads, whenever you score a critical hit with a sniper rifle, you gain a stack of Critical Ascension. That stack grants you critical hit damage and sniper rifle damage, and it stacks up to 999 stacks. At 999 stacks, this is the strongest gun damage, like crit damage, gun damage boost of all time in any Borderlands ever. You're capping out at around 6,000% increased critical hit damage and around 5,000% increased sniper rifle damage. Slightly less than that, but the reason why this skill isn't any higher is 1, because the stacks decay, and 2, you need to hit critical hits with snipers to stack it up. This can make it a little bit unreliable in terms of fighting bosses with it and maintaining actually high stacks, but even at around 100 stacks, which I think is very doable, you're getting 600% critical hit damage and 500 sniper rifle damage. This makes it an extremely strong skill and doesn't really rely on anything else to be incredibly powerful. Coming into our number 6 spot, we actually don't have to go anywhere because we have Bore. Now, Bore is one of my favorite skills of all time. This skill reads that when you shoot an enemy, your bullets pierce them. It goes through them, and if it hits another enemy, it gets 100% increased damage. Each time it passes through an enemy, it keeps stacking those damage multipliers, dealing, hypothetically, infinite damage, depending on, like, if you've got a ton of enemies lined up. Now, we've all seen the one-shots with a level 1 pistol on Bunker, on Hyperius. This skill is obviously capable of dealing pretty much infinite damage. However, its scenarios are unreliable, and going against, remember, the scenario for this list is Gearbox is adding a new raid boss to the games, and we don't know what it is. Bore is one of those skills where it either works or it doesn't. Yeah, maybe we could line up 1 or 2 enemies, but if the hitboxes on the boss that we're fighting are correct, if there's not really any adds, then Bore can die flat in the water. It just won't work. However, obviously, this skill has insane possibilities for damage and is one of the only skills that can one-shot bosses, raid bosses, with literally no gear. We are now at the top 5 most overpowered skills in Borderlands history, and things are getting serious. And at our number 5 spot is Fire in the Skag Den. Now, this seemingly weak tier 1 skill on Moze received Mayhem scaling in Mayhem 2.0, and now this skill, it reads, whenever Moze deals splash damage, she deals bonus incendiary damage. You get 465% bonus incendiary damage on all of your splash damage. In Borderlands 3, they made splash damage part of a gun, so you can get a gun that deals gun damage, elemental damage, and splash damage all at the same time, meaning that splash damage is one of the strongest ways, or splash weapons are some of the strongest weapons in Borderlands 3. Moze synergizes very strongly with them, and on top of that, you get 465, once again, bonus incendiary damage added to all of the damage you're already dealing. The reason this skill is so high up, while it may not lead to some of the crazy damage that some of the other skills do, it is guaranteed all the time, and no matter what raid boss, whatever kind of things in this hypothetical scenario we're getting, Fire in the Skag Den is reliable and obscene amounts of bonus free damage on whatever you're dealing. At our number 4 spot is Amara's Remnant from Borderlands 3. This is one of the only skills that you only need 1 point into out of all the skills on this list. And this skill reads, whenever you kill an enemy with a gun or action skill, you create a homing projectile that seeks out enemies, and any overkill damage is added to this projectile's damage. However, it is not just overkill. It is overkill times 31. It gets times 31 mayhem scaling, times your action skill damage increases, times your splash damage increases, times your elemental damage increases, times your V1 damage, times your V2, times debuffs, and it can crit. This skill, you can overkill an enemy for a few million and pump out a few trillion. I'm going to show you a clip of me killing a 10 trillion modded Seer. We modded Seer to have 10 trillion HP. Seer normally has 10 billion HP at Mayhem 11, and this is a kill where it had 10 trillion, and I didn't really even need to try. This skill is only at the number 4 spot because, for example, if Gearbox, in this hypothetical raid boss situation, it doesn't have ads, Remnant doesn't work. But in terms of like Bore Explosion and Bore and all those other kind of conditionals, this requires the least amount of conditionals. All we need is one single enemy in the arena, and Remnant can do trillions of damage. It is absolutely absurd and is our number 4 spot. Coming in at our number 3 spot is Salvador's Money Shot. Now this skill reads, the last round fired from your magazine deals massively increased damage. With a good class mod, you're getting 880% increased damage on the last shot from your magazine. With this skill, when paired with Salvador's inconceivable and other ammo regen and bigger mag boosts, you can get Money Shot chains where you're shooting 5-10 times, with every shot being a money shot getting that massively increased damage. This skill is ranked so highly because 1, it's incredibly reliable. It'll work against any boss, whether that boss be in the air, on the ground. If that boss has an armor bar, things like Skagden won't be as effective. This is guaranteed damage on any weapon. It's really easy to activate, and it's a massive damage increase. It is one of the most reliable skills and has the potential to do insane damage if you can get those money shot chains. Definitely deserving of its 3 spot. Coming in at our number 2 spot is Moe's short fuse skill. This skill reads, whenever Moe's deals gun damage, there is a chance of a secondary explosion centered on the target. This base explosion chance is 20%, and it's going to deal 50% of your gun damage as this secondary explosion. However, we all know this skill is way stronger than it reads. First off, this chance to proc is guaranteed on your first 2 shots of loading in on Moe's. Your first 2 instances of damage are guaranteed short fuse procs, meaning we can walk up to this raid boss, shoot once, and guarantee ourselves billions, if not trillions of damage easily on our very first shot. It doesn't require any ads, it doesn't require any setup, literally just load in and shoot and guaranteed obscene amounts of damage. Second, short fuses damage proc double dips in a lot of things and has like just a crazy formula. I'm going to pull it up right now on screen. You're going to get your regular damage times your short damage percentage times multipliers such as Torque Cross Promotion, your splash damage, your artifact AoE, your splash damage anointment, Blast Master, Mayhem level scaling, which it gets I think around 7 times Mayhem scaling, Victory Rush, Flare, 150-90 if you've got target softening on. But remember, your first shot is going to get all of these damage modifiers. So your first shot gets all of these damage modifiers, short fuse procs, and gets all of these damage modifiers again. This leads to the insane damage that short fuse can deal, and it is incredibly reliable. Before I say the number 1 spot, I should have mentioned this back when I mentioned Cloud Kill, but I did want to give an honorable mention to Maelstrom on Athena. In the pre-sequel, this is a skill that gives you stacking elemental damage up to 99, and at 99 stacks, which is actually pretty easy to reach, you get around 400% increased elemental damage. In the context of pre-sequel, there weren't a lot of actual multipliers towards your elemental damage, and so this was a unique multiplier that gave you an obscene amount of damage and stacked up really easily. Very good for mobbing, very good for bossing. Didn't quite make our top 10, but honorable mention to it. And coming in at our number 1 spot for the most overpowered skill in the history of Borderlands is none other than Zane's Eraser skill. Now, I've made a ton of builds and content around this skill. It is truly insane. So if you did not know, this skill is like Boar on steroids. Boar, a skill that has infinite damage possibilities, but you really need super specific scenarios. You need a boss with overlapping hitboxes. You need a bunch of minions lined up in front of a boss in order to deal this damage. Imagine if Boar could work against anything, any enemy, no conditions required. That is what Eraser is. Eraser reads, Zane's critical hits pierce through enemies for all weapons, dealing increased damage for every enemy pierced. Pure shot damage is 120% per enemy pierced. Now, at base, Boar is 100%, Eraser is 120%, but what makes Eraser so crazy is its double dipping damage. An Eraser can double dip, triple dip, quadruple dip, and when it is doing all of these dippings in all of your damage, it is also grabbing your splash radius every single time. What makes this skill so crazy is you can shoot a shot from your gun and have one shot hit an enemy like 4 times. And every time it hits that enemy, it is exponentially increasing in damage. Getting splash radius using a hustler enabled this skill to hit any enemy, no matter what they're doing, where they are, multiple times, doing obscene levels of damage. Now, I do have a graphic from Lone Masterino on how this actually works. So this is using a yellow cake. A yellow cake is a rocket launcher that splits after you shoot its initial projectile into 2 projectiles and then splits again up to 4 projectiles, and splitting projectile weapons with AoE are what enable Eraser to do its most damage. Here, we've got your initial shot. You want to Eraser proc on your initial shot. This here with our little graphic here, our orange is our splash double dip. So our first shot is going to Eraser proc. It's then double dipping, but it still has lifetime to go. Note that it's still at its very first projectile, meaning it's going to split. Eraser projectiles can't proc more Eraser projectiles. However, as soon as it splits, it is going to no longer count as an Eraser projectile and therefore can proc Eraser again. Note that whenever you proc an Eraser projectile, it grabs your damage that you dealt with your first shot and then grabs all of your damage increases, not all of them, but a lot of your damage increases again for the projectile, and then that becomes the new base, which can then Eraser proc and then grab a ton of damage multipliers again. So here we've got a shot that is getting splash double dip. If that then crits, which will create more Eraser projectiles, then you've got more Eraser projectiles that will then, you can get splash triple dip, and those triple dip can then split into 2 more projectiles, which will then splash quadruple dip. And from this one shot that you shot with lucky Eraser procs, which are not so lucky if you're using the Hustler class mod, which can give you guaranteed crits with anything, you're getting tons of triple, double, quadruple dipping damage on a single enemy. This is not only a very reliable way to deal damage, but it is extremely, extremely high damage. The threshold or the cap of damage from a Eraser shot is higher than that of short fuse, which is crazy to say, and it works against so many enemies. And this isn't even all theoretical. A little over a year ago, I one-shot a 1 trillion HP Grave Ward. We set up Grave Ward to have 1 trillion HP, and this was back when commitment was uncapped. 390 was nerfed. It was 390 back then. It was nerfed to 150 versus 90 health. 200 splash was the anointment. So many things happened back in the day that allowed me to one-shot a 1 trillion HP Grave Ward with Zane. And I wanted to see, with all of the nerfs that have happened to commitment, to 390, to splash, if we could still do a 1 trillion HP shot. And knowing more, with some different changes, we were able to not only one-shot a 1.5 quadrillion HP Grave Ward, but we even got Zane up to doing around 2.6, 2.7 quadrillion damage with Eraser, using the Root, which is also a really, really strong weapon for Eraser projectiles. But it is absolutely insane. I'm going to play you that clip of that 1.5 quadrillion damage shot. Here. Ooh. Also, a pretty good shot. No way! Dude, we've got damage to spare. What? Guys, that is going to do it for this video. This video was made to be informative, but it is also my opinions. Your opinions on what are the most powerful skills may very well vary. If you think there's a skill that genuinely deserves to be on this list that I didn't include, let me know. I tried to do my best to consider as many skills and survey the community over on my Twitch channel as much as possible. If you've never popped over there, twitch.tv/Moxie. I will catch you guys in the next one. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, maybe hit the bell. Sorry to do the annoying YouTubers things, but it does help. I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.